यहाँ कुछ मिनिमाइज हो गया है, कुछ ऐसा हो गया है यहाँ पे.
But as far as we are
हाँ, हो
concerned,
गया.
you're
ठीक है
fine.
सर. ठीक है सर.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all right. Yes, sir. So we begin with this now.
Vipin, are we on?
Yes, we are live.
Yes, we are live, sir. You can start.
Okay, okay.
How many participants do you have generally?
Well, sir, we have as of now in the last count, we have 2,485 participants for this faculty induction and orientation program.
And how many attend your programs?
Sir, everybody has to attend. Everybody has to attend the programs, but the live programs we have had attendances going up till almost 1,500 participants, or even more sometimes. But it's sometimes a little less. But we've had very good attendance also.
Okay.
For the live ones.
Right.
For the live ones, yes.
Right.
Yeah. So Arnav, I'm starting. Vipin, I'm starting.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Very good afternoon to everybody. To our speaker for the day, Dr. Chandrasekhar Sharma, my colleagues who are with me from Ramanujan College, who have organized part of the organizing committee for the faculty induction and orientation program, which is going on. And we are here for a live session with Dr. Chandrasekhar Sharma. And he is here today to speak to us on a rather interesting topic, which is to do with understanding self and resilience amongst teachers. Dr. Sharma, I'm looking forward to hearing you on this rather interesting topic about resilience and understanding self amongst teachers. We have already had sessions with Dr. Sharma before, so I've had the pleasure of introducing him. But it is possible that there are some participants here today who were not there in the earlier programs, live programs with Dr. Sharma. So I will briefly again introduce him. It's always a pleasure and an honor to introduce him. Dr. Sharma is a very distinguished senior academic of Delhi University. He's an associate professor in the very famous Shri Ram College of Commerce of Delhi University. His areas of research are fuzzy financial ratios, merger and acquisitions, servant leadership, spirituality and green purchasing intentions, default probability, trust, and such other areas. I know he teaches management and processes of management. He's also an expert in teaching about qualitative and quantitative analysis. He has had a long association with Ramanujan College, and we are very happy to have him here. Among his other qualifications and his other achievements is that he has been the director at the Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Management Studies in Delhi, and also the JRE group of management of institutions. He is a much sought after speaker in many conferences, workshops, and faculty development programs. And once again, I welcome him with this, that he is, I know, because of his long association with my college, that he's a very, very passionate teacher. He will put teaching and his students as his first priority than anything else. And it's very rare to find a teacher who is so committed to his work like Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma, it's a real pleasure to have you with us, and I welcome you once again. And I look forward to your presentation on understanding self and resilience amongst teachers. Dr. Sharma.
Yes, good afternoon, Dr. Samantha, and good afternoon to all the members of the organizing team and the participants. I hope I am audible. Is it fairly all right, my volume,
Yes, you are.
or it is
Yes.
little less?
No, it's okay, fine.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Fine? All right.
Dr. Sharma,
Little-
before you begin, I just
Yeah.
wanted to say that your lecture will be about an hour, after which Dr. Arnav will pick up the questions which the participants are having. He is monitoring us on the YouTube, which is where this session is being directly channeled, and he will take the questions and he'll bring the questions to you after that. So we'll have an
All right, sure.
question and answer session. Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Samantha, for all these nice words you spoke about me. Thank you very much for this. And I thank you also for inviting me to deliver this lecture on understanding self and resilience. Dear colleagues, it is something, a very important thing about us all is understanding of who we are. Normally, we as teachers, we always say one thing. Very commonly we say this, make this a statement, that there is an inner self, single authentic self inside us. And it is that single authentic self, the true self inside us, that we must listen to. And our inner calling in life always comes from there. And we often teach our students like that if you have to pursue a career where your true calling is, where your true self, the authentic self, the real self inside you guides you. Now, but the question is, one question that we have to ask is, what is this authentic self, real self, true self, which gives us the inner calling? That is one question that is there. But before that, we have to ask a question. Is there really a true self, real self, authentic self, or there is a single self inside us, or there are multiple selves inside us? This is a question. The what we call the modern psychological view, or we will say modern liberal psychological view of human being, which we call the humanist view of man, that says that there is a single self inside us and we must listen to that single self, and that single self should determine the direction in which we should move. But here today I want to say that the evidence of the psychological experiments that have been done and the studies that have taken place of the working of the human brain, they do not prove this point, that there is a single individual self inside us or single authentic self inside us. Actually, we have more than one self inside us. And there is one self which actually gathers the data from outside, which is the experiencing self. It experiences. And there is another one inside us which interprets that. And the decision making is not done by the experiencing self. It is the interpreter of that experience inside us that determines, that makes our decisions on our behalf, that decides what our reactions are, that decides what positions we take, that decides what decisions we make, and so on. So whether we are happy or we are unhappy, it is the interpreting self that decides. Whether we work hard or we are lazy, it is the interpreting self that decides. We get into depression on meeting a particular or experiencing something, or we bounce back. That also is decided by the interpreting self. Now, question is, first I have to establish that there is really an experiencing self, and there is a narrator inside us or an interpreter inside us. You see, for this, Let me begin by telling you that human brain has two portions. One is the right hemisphere and the other is the left hemisphere. And both these hemispheres are joined by a cord. And as far as the left hemisphere is concerned, this left hemisphere controls our right side. So whatever we see on our in our right visual field, that is actually seen, interpreted by our left brain hemisphere. And this brain hemisphere is concerned with our speech. It is concerned with our logical reasoning and thinking, cognitive aspects of what we say cognitive logical thinking. That is taken care of by the left brain of ours. And as far as the right hemisphere is concerned, this right hemisphere, it is concerned with emotions. It is concerned with the space. And the left hemisphere is concerned with the speech. I'm repeating this. It is concerned with the speech, logic, thinking, and reasoning. Right hemisphere is by and large concerned with emotions. This hemisphere, right hemisphere, is concerned with controlling our left side of the brain. And you see, it has been found that when, for example, there is a stroke on the right hemisphere of the brain, then if something is presented to the on the left side of the body, that is on the left visual field, then brain is not able to register. So basically, I'm not saying that these two entities are functioning independently. They function in a coordinated way, undoubtedly. They are linked and they are linked with the help of a cord. But predominantly, the left hemisphere controls the speech, left hemisphere controls the logic, left hemisphere gathers data from the right visual field. Whatever is presented on the right side, that is read by the left, and whatever is presented on the right side, on this side, left side, it is read by the right hemisphere. Now, thing is, dear friends, how these actually function. Now, the neurologists have tried to study this, and very rich amount of data has come as a result of the experiments that were done on the epilepsy patients. You see, as far as the epilepsy patients are concerned, they receive a sort of electrical storm in one part of the brain, and that storm disables wherever the electrical currents go. So what happens that when this storm is very severe, say it starts from the right side, it spreads to the left side, and the whole body becomes completely incapacitated. And likewise, if the storm starts from the left side, in severe cases, if it starts from the left side of the brain, left hemisphere, it spreads to the right side, and whole body becomes completely incapacitated, at least temporarily. So in severe cases, what the doctors do is that that cord which connects the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, that is disconnected, that is cut. And that therefore is, so the connection between right and left hemispheres, that becomes disjointed. Now the idea is that these patients would at least, if the storm, electrical storm in these epilepsy patients starts on the left side of the brain, then it does not spread to the right side. And if it starts from the right side, it does not spread to the left side of the brain. A part of the brain keeps functioning, and therefore they remain conscious and in some control of their body and reaction. But these kind of patients have provided very rich data about how the human brain thinks. And I would like to talk about the experiments that have been done by a Nobel Prize laureate Professor Roger Walcott Sperry. He received his Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in the year 1981. And I would like to talk about his experiment conducted on a teenage boy. And what they did. You see, the left side of the brain, it has the speech center. So what they did to this boy. This boy already had his cord connected, right hemisphere and left hemisphere disconnected. So what they did, that they presented to his left visual field, that is on right side, the a picture, all right, and they also presented a picture to the right side of the brain. Now see what they did. It's like this. They generally asked him a question: when you grow up, young boy, what would you like to do? So this boy simply said that when I grow up, I would like to become a draftsman. That is, he wanted to make maps. So for the architecture, for the architects, and for the people who are specializing in making the maps. So he wanted to become a draftsman. Very interesting. Now, after some time, the left visual field, that is to be read by the right side of the brain, was shown so many pictures. All right, because the right side of the brain, it has a speech center, but it cannot articulate a speech. Speech is there in the left side of the brain. So when this boy was asked, what do you want to become when you grow up? So answer had automatically come from the left side of the brain, because left side of the brain has the speech center. Right side of the brain would not be able to speak. So he was left side of the brain, this right side of the brain was presented pictures on the left visual fields. And when he looked at the pictures, his hand, the pictures were presented, naturally he could not speak. So he had to select a picture from among the pictures that were presented to him. And he picked up from there the picture of an automobile race. Now this was very perplexing, that when you ask him, what do you want to become? The left side of the brain says that he wanted to become a draftsman. But the right side of the brain, immediately thereafter, when he's asked to connect that idea with a visual picture, so he's connecting with something which is absolutely unrelated to the idea of becoming a draftsman. So this was very, very perplexing for the researchers. So they wanted to actually investigate this thing further. Okay, how is it that two unconnected things are being picked up? So what they did, on a similar patient, Dr. Professor Sperry, Walcott Sperry, and one of his students, Mazaniga, they conducted an experiment on another patient, epilepsy patient, who had his cord connecting the left side of the brain and right side of the brain disconnected. To this person, what they did, that they presented some pictures to the left side of the brain, that is in his right visual field. And he was asked, what did he see? So he was shown only one picture there, and that was the picture of a chicken claw of a chicken. This boy then answered, well, I have seen a chicken claw. He was able to speak that answer. And when he was able to speak that answer, because there is a speech center on the left side of the brain. Fine. Simultaneously, while he was being shown the chicken claw, at the same time, to his right brain, that is in his left visual field, he was shown the picture of a snowy field. That is, a scenery was shown where there was huge snow that was spread in that particular picture. So then he was asked, well, what have you seen? So obviously, left side of the brain was able to see, and he was able to tell that this is a chicken claw. Now, to find out how the right side of the brain had interpreted that snow field, these researchers presented a number of pictures to his left visual field to be read by the right brain. Now, obviously, the right brain does not have a speech center, or it does not have a speech center which can articulate. Okay, so but it can select the pictures. So when the pictures were presented to him, his hand started moving, and he selected the picture of a snow shovel. Snow shovel is used for the purposes of removing snow from the place. Now, it was very perplexing again. So this boy was asked, why have you selected this snow shovel? So he replied, snow shovel I selected because chicken claw is connected with chicken barn. There must be a place where chicken are being kept. And if there is a snow, then that chicken barn has to be cleaned. And for the purposes of cleaning, we would require this snow shovel. Now, please notice here. This is very, very significant kind of a finding. What has this boy done? What the brain has done? Left visual field is seeing chicken claw. Right visual field is seeing snow field. And right visual field is picking up snow shovel. Now, that means whatever data has been collected by the left brain and by the right brain, this is the data collection by the brains, the cues that are coming from the environment. And there is something inside us which is building a story around it. A credible story is being built up around it. It is very, very interesting. Now, the thing is that means that inside us, it is not merely the brain is gathering data, the experiencing self which is gathering the data. At the same time, there is an interpreting self inside us which is weaving stories, which is giving interpretations, which is giving reactions, which is giving ideas. In another experiment conducted by Mazaniga, it was a very interesting experiment once again. A lady who was similar type, epilepsy patient, her right side of the brain was presented some, in the left visual field was presented some pornographic pictures. When she looked at those pictures, she put her hand on the face, on the mouth, and started smiling. Then she was asked, what did she see? So she said, I saw something. She did not reply. Now, answer was coming from the left side of the brain because the speech center is the left side of the brain. So she said, I saw something. So she said, the experimenter asked, what did you see? I saw something funny. So what funny did you see? Actually, the furniture around is very funny. She replied, she deflected the question completely. The items which are kept in the room, they are funny. Now, what does it mean? The information that is coming to the right side of the brain is of one type. It is reading the pornographic pictures. But there is an interpreting self inside us which is creating a story around it, an interpretation around it. So, my dear friends, I only wanted to establish only one point over here. And that point is, dear friends, that the brain gathers data from the outside, from the information. But there is and that is our experiencing self. But there is an interpreter inside us, and that interpreter inside us interprets it in such a way that we build stories, we build logic, we build emotions around that. We build justifications because of that particular interpreter inside us. And it is that interpreter which is the final decision maker for us. Whatever we do, the decisions are taken by this, my dear friends. Now, question is, how does this interpreting self behave? Normally, we are told, we all know, we are all academics at some point in time, some stage in time. We have always been told to act rationally, act logically, act in a manner like, for example, in classical economics, we are all taught that the basic objective of human being is to maximize satisfaction, maximize utility. If you are entrepreneur, then you have to maximize profit. And you have to function logically. You have to function rationally. And this is one phrase which often, very often comes in front of us, that this is not logical behavior, this is illogical behavior, and so on, my dear friends. Now, the question therefore is, how does this interpreting self really behave? Does it really behave very, very logically always? Or there is a certain pattern that it develops some rules of thumb? How does it really function? Now, this task was done. A lot of psychologists have functioned on it, but I would like to talk about some of the very important, some of the experiments that have been done by Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman was given a Nobel Prize in economics for his works done on psychology of decision making, and he received a Nobel Prize in the year 2002. Now, see, he conducted one very interesting experiment for for telling us, for finding out how human beings make their decisions, how they interpret events. And the experiment consisted of two parts. The one part was a long part, that is, the experiment continued for about 90 seconds. And second one was the short part, which the experiment was for a period of 60 minutes. So let me first describe what happened in the experiment number one, that is a short experiment, and what happened in the experiment number two, which was a long experiment. Long experiment for 90 minutes, 90 seconds, and short experiment for 60 seconds. What Daniel Kahneman did, that he invited his subjects to a laboratory, to a place, and he asked his subjects to put their hand in cold water. The water was having a temperature of 14 degrees Celsius. Now, 14 degrees Celsius temperature water is fairly unpleasant. Now, the people were asked to put their hand in that vessel in which the water with 14 degrees Celsius cold, 14 degrees Celsius was there. It is fairly unpleasant. After that, they were asked to remove their hand. That's it. This was one part of the experiment. Now, second part of the experiment. Second part of the experiment was that these subjects, after some time, were asked to put their hand once again in the cold water for having the same temperature of 14 degrees Celsius. But this time, they had to keep their hand inside it for a period of 90 seconds. And there was a difference in it. Once they had put their hand inside the water, which is fairly unpleasant, all right, with 14 degrees Celsius, after 60 seconds, without the knowledge of these patients, these subjects, some warm water was added to the vessel, to the pot in which they were keeping their hand. And the temperature was increased in the last 30 seconds from 14 degrees Celsius to 15 degrees Celsius. That is to say, the temperature was still unpleasant, but it was comparatively less pleasant than it was before. My dear friends. Now see, after that, they were asked to remove their hand. Now they were asked after that if we have to repeat this experiment, which one will you like to repeat? The short experiment for 60 seconds, or for 90 seconds, the longer one? And this simple experiment threw up a very interesting and a very, very eye-opening kind of a finding. The finding was that more than 80% of the subjects said that they wanted to repeat the long experiment. Now, this is interesting. This is strange also. Why it is strange? Questionnaire was given to them to analyze their feelings about both the experiments. Now, about the long experiment, they said that it was less comfortable. Now, please see. 14 degrees Celsius temperature water throughout during the 60-second period is unpleasant. For 90 seconds, they are having their hand in which for 60 seconds, they are feeling unpleasantness of 40 degrees Celsius. But towards the end, that unpleasantness was slightly reduced. So their overall understanding was that this 90-second period was less unpleasant than the 60-second period of more unpleasant experience. Now, what they had done, therefore, they had averaged out the peaks. That is, what they had averaged out the unpleasantness of 14 degrees and unpleasant or little less unpleasantness of 15 degrees. And they decided that the 90-degree period was less uncomfortable than the 60-second period of unpleasantness. Now, please see, as far as the body is concerned, as far as the experience is concerned, the unpleasantness in the long experiment was for a period of full 90 seconds, although it was a little less for the less portion, for 30 seconds time. Now, the interpretation, it is now, what is it? What is it that led the people to interpret this physical unpleasantness as less unpleasant? Actually, what they did was that they averaged out the complete unpleasantness. If we see very technically, if you look at the experience, if you look at the experience of the experiencing self, then it is 90-second period, which is a period of unpleasantness. If the experiencing self had to take a decision, then the experiencing self would have accumulated the entire period of 90 seconds of unpleasantness. But it did not accumulate that. Instead of accumulated those 90 seconds, it averaged out the unpleasantness. And therefore said, no, it is less unpleasant to be, to being less unpleasant is fine. It is just okay with us. So the interpreting self has taken over the entire experience. And see, they conducted, to prove this particular point and to verify this particular point, they conducted one more experiment. And what was that experiment, my dear friends? They conducted that experiment on the patients having problem with their bones. So what they do is that they perform colonoscopy. The doctors perform, just as for knowing the heart, they perform angiography. They insert a certain wire or a camera inside the body to find out what is the state of blockage of the arteries is. Similarly, in case of colonoscopy, a wire with a camera is inserted inside the anus to understand what is happening inside the intestines. And it is a fairly unpleasant event that takes place. Now, what Daniel Kahneman and his co-experimenter did, that they took some patients who accepted to participate in that experiment. And what they did, they asked them to rate their pain on a scale of 0 to 10. And they would ask the patient to rate their pain every minute. After every minute, they would ask, what is the pain? So I'm a lot of pain. On 0 to 10, how much is the pain? So the patient would say 8. Okay. And if it is less, he may say 1, he may say 2, he may say 3. So in one set of patients, in case of one set of patients, the procedure was performed for a period of 8 minutes. And the maximum pain that they reported during that 8-minute period was rated at 8. That is, every minute the patient was asked, what is the level of pain? He would say 8. Now, again, it was being inserted inside. What is the level of pain? He would say 7. Okay. What is the level of pain now? So next minute, he may say 6. He may say 4, like this. And this was continued till the wire was taken out of the body completely. So the procedure took about 8 minutes time, and every patient gave 8 readings. For 1 minute, for every minute, there was 1 reading of the level of pain. So it was noted that the maximum level of pain reported by the patient was 8, and minimum level of pain in that procedure that was rated was 7. And they were asked to give an average overall experience. What was your overall experience? If you say, how much would you say? They were not given the scores, of course, but most of them said our level of pain was something like 7.5. Interesting. Then there was another set of patients. And in these patients, this particular procedure was performed over a period of 24 minutes. Now imagine 24 minutes, a foreign body is lying inside your body. Now, again, with these patients also, the same method of data collection was repeated. And what was the method? Every minute, these patients were asked to tell what was the degree of pain. How much pain did they experience? And they were supposed to give this rate the pain, level of pain on a scale from 0 to 10. Now, what happened? That in case of these patients, the procedure obviously was performed very, very slowly. Maximum pain that they registered or they reported was again 8. But when the wire was being taken out very, 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 very slowly, gradually, so at the time of finishing, most of these people had very little pain. And these people reported a pain of something like 4 or so. When these patients were asked, what was your overall level of pain? Single question. Can you please give the on an average overall, what was the pain? These people reported something like 4.5 or so. Now, this finding is very important. Again, that the experiencing self inside us is experiencing the pain inside the body continuously for a period of 24 minutes. But the patient, the person, the experiencer is not concerned with that accumulated pain over a period of 24 long, long minutes. They averaged out. They only remembered the peak and the bottom. They remembered only what was the worst and what was the least uncomfortable. And they averaged out the whole thing. Technically speaking, for 24 long minutes, they had a foreign body, foreign thing inside their body. All right. So if only the experiencing self had to give the experience of what they had gone through during that period of 24 minutes, this would definitely have said that this 24-minute period was a difficult period. But there is something else inside us which made them decide, made them interpret the entire experience in a completely and entirely different manner, my dear friends. So what happens is that the experiencing self gathers the data relating to the cues that are coming from outside, including the physical pain that we feel. But the interpreting self inside us may actually interpret the pain much less than what actually it is. Because human brain functions in a very, this interpreting self interprets the data in a very, very strange manner. For example, you look at this, the process of the pain experienced by women while giving the childbirth. Now, that pain is severe, horrible. And an interesting thing about that pain is that if you go through that pain, logically, rationally speaking, no woman should be ready to go through that pain once again. But if you ask the mothers, as has been done in surveys, what is the most pleasant experience you had ever? Actually, at Ramanujan College only, once we were discussing the issue of happiness in one of the workshops. So I asked the participants a question: what was their most happy moment of life? So the young mothers, unanimously, all the young mothers, they said the most pleasant experience of their life was having given birth to the child, holding my child in my hand. Now, how is it? How is it? How does it happen? There is a pain, experiencing self had experienced severe pain. But what happened after that pain? Number one, the body releases certain chemicals, cortisol, endorphins, which create sense of pleasantness in the body, and that continues for several days. And apart from that, the recognition and the praise that you get for giving birth to a child from the family, from friends, from the society in general, and the exalted status that we assign to the mother. So that mitigates the impact of that pain completely. So it is the interpreting self which says that a painful experience is actually a pleasant experience. And a survey was conducted on the Swede women. More than 2,000 women were asked after giving birth to the child, a few months after giving birth to the child, and they more than 90% said that it was a great, pleasant experience with them. So, dear friends, what I am trying to say over here is that it is not the single experiencing self that leads us. It is the interpreting self inside us which interprets the data, which gives meaning to whatever experience we have whenever we meet someone or we don't meet someone, or whenever we work with the people around. It is the interpreting self that plays a very, very important role. Our reaction to the situations, my dear friends, that is determined not by our experiencing self, but by the interpreting self. And from here, dear friends, we move to the next aspect of our discussion, and that is about the resilience, my dear friends. You see, some people, when they face an unpleasant situation in life, so some people, they completely break. They feel, they go into the state of victimhood. They feel dejected, depressed, and they find that there is nothing to look forward to in life. For example, a lot of data are there that after divorce, a large number of people go into the withdrawal mode. They, they give themselves, they say that they are giving themselves time because the experience is very unpleasant and they want to bring themselves back to equilibrium, and they take a lot of time. And on, of course, it happens with good number of people, but at the same time there is another set of good number of people who are able to reconcile with whatever unpleasantness had happened, and after that they are able to bring their life back to the rails, back to the normal life, very quickly, very early, very easily, in spite of the setback. Now, what is it that differentiates this kind of people? We call it technically resilience, bouncing back. Some people, in the face of unpleasant experience, are not able to bounce back. And some people are able to bounce back. Some are able to bounce back early, some are not able to bounce back at all. And they relapse into a state of depression, victimhood, and they start feeling that the whole world is actually unfair to them. Today, for example, is the time when we are going through, the whole world is going through a massive crisis. The crisis that has been brought on by Corona or this COVID-19 virus. Large number of people have lost their jobs. Large number of people have experienced cut in their jobs, cut in their salaries. And large number of people are feeling as if there is no future. They are worried about their families, themselves, and they are finding it very difficult to reconcile. Now, at this time, therefore, it is very important for us to understand the resilience. Resilience, what is it that makes us resilient, and what is it that makes us opposite of this, that it throws us into the bottom of complete depression, dejection, sadness, and a state of victimhood, that the whole world is bad, and why is it happening to them? Why does it happen? So, dear friends, it is number one, it is the interpreting self, which is responsible for either your resilience or your depression, sadness, dejection, and emotions like that. One thing we have to understand. And only this interpreting self will bring about that resilience. But question is how? What are the characteristics of the people who have higher resilience and those who do not have it? Now, first and the foremost, as far as resilience is concerned, my dear friends, first aspect relates to facing the reality or accepting the truth of what is actually happening to you. If we are not able to accept the reality, then we will be in the denial mode. And the reaction would be, why is it happening to me? Say, for example, somebody loses job. Say, for example, somebody's salary is cut. Now, one reaction can always be that the management is unfair with me. These people have been making profits for a very long time because of my hard work. And now when I need them, these people have treated me like a piece of squalor, piece of dirt. And to maintain their profits, to maintain their own interest, these people have thrown me out of job, or these people have reduced my salary. This is one aspect of this. This event can be interpreted in this way. And another way is that we do not deny this. Well, this has happened. Fine. Let us accept it. Can there be an alternative strategy to this? This has just happened. I cannot change this. Let me face this. So the interpreting self decides to give that strength from inside, that the experiencing self is experiencing reduction in income, reduction in recognition, and the experiencing self is facing physical disability also. Many of the needs are not met, or maybe there are problems within the family. Those are being experienced by the experiencing self, and the interpreting self now may go into the denial mode. It is happening, fine. And one starts blaming others. The other is facing it by yourself. And how do we do it? I'll give you one example. One very interesting example. It is from corporate world. The example is there is a finance company called Morgan Stanley. And in Morgan Stanley, they have their offices they had their offices, they still have their offices in the World Trade Center in United States, which is a symbol of the commercial power of United States of America. And in 1994, I think it was around 1994, there was some kind of a terrorist attack. So at that time, these people were occupying in the South Tower of the World Trade Center, the floors from 43rd floor to 74th floor. And they were housing there something like 2,700 employees. At that time, that was 94. At that time, a meeting of the board of directors took place. And a very interesting discussion ensued over there. And the discussion was, what if this kind of attacks takes place once again? What would happen to us? Number one, what would happen to our employees? And number two, if something happens to the employees, what would happen to our business? Let us make a plan. In case there is a problem like this, let us face this. We should be prepared that our employees can be taken out of the place safely, number one. Number two, our business does not suffer. And they decided at that time that while they will have offices in the World Trade Center, they will also have a number of offices in other places also, which meant incurring a lot of expense in terms of payment of rent. And many people laughed at them. What is this? What is this? They are wasting money on something which may or may not happen. And yes, 9/11, 9th September, 9th September, famous experiment. And what was the year? 2001. 9th September 2001. What happened? In the early morning at 8:46 in the morning, when the offices were up and functioning, an aircraft comes and hits the South Tower and it crashes. Now, as it crashes, there is hullabaloo. There is, of course, panic around. There is a lot of noise. And obviously, everybody is worried. But within 1 minute's time, Morgan Stanley started evacuating their employees from there. After 15 minutes, Second plane came and hit the North Tower. But by that time, most of the employees from 47th floor to 74th floor of Morgan Stanley housed in the other tower, had been evacuated. And Morgan Stanley lost 7 lives. 7 lives are precious lives, undoubtedly, but the loss, which could have been much more, was reduced to only 7. And after the happening of such a catastrophic incident, the Morgan and Stanley were back to business within a short period of 1 day. Their services started operating from the next day itself because all the employees knew where to go and start working and functioning. This is one very interesting and very powerful example of facing the reality and taking a bold step. Normally, what happens that we often say that facing the reality may often mean taking a very pessimistic view of life. For example, here very pessimistic view of life was taken, but it was very real. Now imagine the incident took place on 9/11, 11th September. On 10th September, if this incident was to be discussed, this investment by Morgan Stanley was to be discussed, everybody would have said on 10th September that these people are mad. These people have taken things too far. But the same thing would not be stated on, on 12th September. That is 1 day after the incident. So this is one thing. And one thing more, dear friends, I would like to say. There is a very interesting incident. Not interesting, it is a painful incident actually. There was a colonel who, along with his teams, had been captured by the Viet Cong in the Vietnam War. This gentleman was, I think his name was Colonel Collins. He had been captured, and the Viet Cong, the communist regime of that time was ruthless. And their whole regiment, a large number of people from their regiment had been captured by them, and they were kept in prison. And these people were not following the Geneva Convention of that time, that is taking care of the prisoners, as India had done. When India had taken the Pakistani soldiers into custody, we did not torture them. General Manek Shah gave them very good treatment. And when he was asked at one time, why is it that he was treating them so well? So his reply was, they are after all soldiers. So that is the kind of ethos that he followed. But Viet Cong did not follow that kind of ethos. They were torturing the prisoners. So prisoners were really tortured a lot, and they were, of course, mentally, they were very disturbed. Now, in there, Colonel Collins describes in his narrative that there were some people who felt, well, this was going to get over very soon, after 2 months' time, after 4 months' time, after 6 months' time. Colonel Collins said that I knew in my own mind that it was not going to end so soon. It might take maybe a year or 2 years inside his mind. And what he said that practically all of the colleagues of mine, they died. And they all died of disappointment. Because when they thought that they will be out after 2 months, it got extended by another 2 months. When those who thought they will be out in 4 months, those 4 months got multiplied into 8 months, and so on. So the thing is, my dear friends, sometimes the resilience may come from our understanding, realistic understanding of the situation. For example, today's COVID situation. I remember that some people said to me in the month of March that it might be over maximum by April, maximum by May. Sometimes some people said June. And there were some who were saying that last time in 1918, when the Spanish flu had come, it took 2 years for it to go away. All right. And somebody said that it will reach the peak, then it will come down, and then there will be another rise in the cases, then it will go down, and eventually it will die out when the herd immunity is completely built up. and it may take something like 2 years' time. World Health Organization is saying that this time it may take maybe 1.5 years. We do not know. Now the question is, if you are a resilient individual, then you face the reality and you are prepared to fight the most pessimistic view. Now, please see, not taking the pessimistic view, taking the realistic view does not mean that you become pessimistic. It actually means that you are taking a pessimist view to fight it, to prepare an appropriate strategy and to articulate a strategy so that you can build your actions around it so that you can bounce back. So this is one aspect. Once again, it will depend on your interpreting self. Second aspect, my dear friends, and it is a very, very important aspect, and that relates to finding meaning. Can you create hope? Can your interpreting self inside you, in the most disappointing situation, in a situation which looks completely, which look like a situation in which fate cannot be changed, a situation in which fate cannot be changed, can you find or create a meaning in that? If you have that, then you are able to create the resilience within you. And these words, which I am saying, that you create a meaning in a situation when facing a situation in which a fate, even fate cannot change the situation. These are the words by Professor or Dr. Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl is a psychiatrist, was a psychiatrist, Austrian psychiatrist, and he was captured by the Nazis, and he was in a Nazi camp in Austria. And on the basis of his experiences, he wrote a book. Book was In Search of Meaning. The book is very interesting. The I think exact title is Man's Search for Meaning. It is available for free on the internet. You can check it. Man's Search for Meaning. And this book has led to creation of a new school of psychotherapy in the psychological and psychiatric circles, and that is called the humanist psychology or the meaning psychology. The Dr. Frankl at that particular moment, while he documents all this, he documents the experiences that he went through and the inmates went through in the Nazi camp. You see, he describes a very interesting incident over there. Not an interesting incident, but I would say a very disturbing incident. He said that temperatures were very low. The Nazis used to give us food only once a day, and that food used to be in the form of a small bowl of soup. This bowl of soup did not have much nutrition. In the kind of temperature that we were living in, which was sub-zero temperature, it was barely, hardly sufficient to keep the body and soul together. And the situation was so bad that every time, every day, we would be taken out and we would be forced to construct a road for the Nazis. And if anybody ever happened to contact even bad cold, then the death of this person was certain. So weak was the immunity of the people living in that Nazi camp. And he describes that the worst moment of that particular time was that when somebody contacted the disease, say either bad cold or cough, and when everybody knew that the death of this person is certain, then within their mind, without talking to anybody, with their eyes communicating with each other, they would among themselves decide who would take his shirt or coat, who would take his pen, an extra pen, who would take his shoes, and so on. To such level had the human mind gone down to such a level human mind had gone down. But in spite of such misery, in spite of such torture, in spite of such suffering, in spite of such danger to life, in spite of such disappointment, nobody at that time thought of committing suicide. Why? Why? So he said only one thing, because everybody who was living in that time, everybody had some hope inside for the better future, and they had a meaning for their life. For example, he writes his own case in that case. He says that I used to imagine and think that I will go out after some time. After some time, this war is going to be over. The basic defeat that I can inflict upon these Nazis is by keeping myself alive, not by allowing myself to die. This itself is my victory over these people. One. Number two, he said he would think to himself, when I go out, I will go and deliver lectures. I will talk to the people. I will get some employment. Maybe I will open my own clinic for psychiatric help to large number of people who would be coming out or who would be wanting to coming out of the trauma that has been inflicted by these Nazis for such a long period of time. That he said gave meaning to my life. And similarly, he said that all other inmates who were living over there, they all had created their own meanings in that particular life. So the second aspect that requires that is ingredient, second ingredient which is required for creating resilience among ourselves is, and that is giving meaning to life, finding meaning in the most disappointing situation. And interesting thing about it is, my dear friends, that if you have conscious training about resilience, like I am giving you some ideas, then you are able to create that resilience by acting in a certain way, by creating consciously the meaning in life. But most of the time, we do not even know that we are actually resilient. Very often, it is after the passing of the bad event that we get to know that we are really resilient. This is a very interesting part of thing. But here, the insight that I am trying to provide on the basis of the experiences, resilience can be created if in a disappointing situation you can create among yourself, you can create some meaning, some hope for your future for some time. And one thing very important again here, if you are able to create meaning once, it does not mean that you will continue to create that meaning forever and ever. Actually, your interpreting self has to be trained to continue with that process of creating meaning in your life continuously at all stages of life. Otherwise, it is quite possible that you are resilient at one point in time, and at another point of time, you become completely depressed. And I would here like to quote the case of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Alexander Solzhenitsyn is a person who wrote the famous novel, a famous book called Gulag Archipelago. And he was given Nobel Prize of Literature for that particular book. This gentleman, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who received this Nobel Prize for Literature, this fellow was not cowed down by his experience in the labor camp, which were actually started by Lenin, and they became notorious, sharply notorious during the times of Stalin between 1930 and 1955. People were taken into the labor camp as punishment, and they were tortured and made to work hard like anything. So he survived that successfully. He survived cancer also successfully, my dear friends, very interestingly. And he also survived the, the capture by the Nazis, interestingly. And he received the Nobel Prize, and after that, he came and settled in United States of America. And he was actually living at a place, he started living at a place called Vermont. But when he started living over there, a thought started coming to his mind that the West is irresponsible. The freedom that is available in West is not being utilized by these people appropriately. And very interestingly, this fellow became completely disoriented with the freedom that West offered. and of course, he got very upset by the critiques. Naturally, when you are writing a novel and you are a famous writer, then there will be people who will be praising you, and there will certainly be people who will be criticizing you also. But he did not focus on the people who showered praise on his work. He started focusing on his critiques, and result was he got into depression and decided to leave United States and go back to Russia or Soviet Union of that time. So this is an example where a person who was resilient at one point in time became antithesis of resilience at another point of time in life. So thing is that you have to continue to find meaning at every stage in life. And if you fail to do that, then definitely your resilience will also die down, my dear friends. And yes, third and last thing, I know I'm exceeding my time. Dr. Arnab, give me 2-3 more minutes. Let me complete the argument.
Sure, sir. Sure,
The,
sir.
the,
Please,
the,
please
yes, the
continue.
third aspect
Okay.
about resilience is we call it, in Hindi, we call it jugaad. In English, there is a very interesting word for this, which is called bricolage. Bricolage. Bricolage is the word for what bricolage actually means is that you are able to create something, you are able to make do an impossible situation with very, very limited resources. You don't have resources, okay? And this is one of the major reasons which makes us hopeless, which makes us distressed, which makes us feeling the doom and darkness around us. But if you have resilience, then you automatically have this element of bricolage. Bricolage is that you are able to create, you are able to generate resources out of nothing. You are able to find one way or the other from somewhere. And in corporate world, we say that successful organizations are those which has maximum number of bricoleurs. 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 I don't know what the correct pronunciation is, but this is what the word is. So you should have the ability, don't get disappointed. If you have resilience, then your interpreting self does not let you become disappointed because the resources are not there. You find one way or the other. You find your route. It is like that you are like a grass. That grass, on the grass, if say a brick comes and falls on the grass, right? That grass becomes dead, but it does not become dead forever. Grass finds its way out from the other side, from this side or that side, and after some time you will find that the brick which had fallen on the grass is once again covered by the long shoots that have come and covered, that have come out to cover that brick itself completely. And the grass is growing, grass grows, and it moves in the waves of wind that come in its own glory to the complete denial of the existence of that severe brick that had come and had killed it at one point of time. So this is what actually, dear friends, the being a bricolage is, being a jugadu is finding out resources when there are no resources, my dear friends. So ladies and gentlemen, I think these are some of the aspects that I've said. To summarize, I would say, number one, we do not have a single self, authentic self, single inner self inside us. We have an experiencing self, and we have an interpreting self inside us. And that interpreting self inside us averages out the things. And the greater the control we have on this interpreting self, the greater the control we will have on our lives, on our emotions, on our thoughts, and on our interactions. And as far as bouncing back in the dark times, as far as this aspect is concerned, the resilience, as far as is concerned, there are three major pillars of action. Number one, As I said straight, face the reality. Number, accept the fact. In Upanishad, they say that there are five kind of wealth that a human being has to create. And these, what are these wealth? These wealth are sham, dam. Sham, dam, titiksha, samadhan, kshama, ishwar, pranidhan. Actually six. So sham is mind control. Dam is sense control. Sham, dam, titiksha means perseverance. This is the resilience. Perseverance. Awareness. Through awareness, we have control on mind. Titiksha. Perseverance. Samadhan. Samadhan is nothing but accepting the fact. Whatever is happening, it is happening. Okay, I accept this. And then kshama. No ill will inside. And finally, Ishwar Pranidhan, making an attempt to be one with the entire universe, my dear friends. So, ultimately, it is this dimension that is accepting the fact. And after accepting the fact, giving meaning to life. And finally, becoming, developing that ability inside you for creating resources, ways, and paths out of the limited resources. From the in the dark alley, you light a light of your own, however small it may be. Then you will be able to bounce back, fight back, and grow, develop, evolve for a better future for yourself. Better and balanced future for yourself. Thank you very much, my dear friends. If there are any questions, please tell me.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. It's been very fascinating listening to you. This is a very new way of looking at our problems. This is not only, I think, beneficial to teachers, but to anybody who's, in any profession who's looking at a certain way of negotiating issues that come up. Arnav, I'm sure you'll have some questions, so maybe you can take them up now.
Yes, thank you, sir. Sir, there are some questions but the chat box is filled with overwhelming remarks regarding excellent session. Thank you, and very transforming. Many participants have felt this session to be.
Please convey my thanks. I think I can convey directly. Thank you very much, dear friend. Thanks a lot. Please let us take the questions now.
So, sir, one question is from Mr. Sudendra Davare. Why is the interpreting self unpredictable and uncertain? And sir, related question is that can we consider this interpreting self to be man and or buddhi, and the experiencing self to be man? Can we classify them as that?
Let's not classify it like this. Interpreting, my point is very simple. Data is being gathered by the senses, five senses that we have. And whatever we are getting from the environment, that is being interpreted. That is the interpreting self. Now, one question that has been asked is, what is it that forms the interpreting self inside us? How we interpret. I think that if I have understood the question, why it is that different people interpret the same phenomena in a different way. Basically, how the interpreting self will act, how you interpret, it depends. First of all, most important part is your childhood experiences. Knowingly, unknowingly, the manner in which, even the way you are held by your mother, the manner in which you are held by your father and other members of the family, the way your family members were interacting, that determines your interpreting self. I'll give you one example on this. Very often, we have limiting thoughts. Resilience, we do not have resilience. Why? One reason is we have limiting thoughts that we cannot accomplish this. For example, Now, from where does this limiting thought come? Now, human mind is very strange, my dear friends. At some point in time, somewhere, maybe your mother who loves you the most, maybe your father who loves you most, he just tells you, very casually tells you, you cannot accomplish this. You are useless. Very, very often we make this statement. These are very common. And I'm not saying these are not normal. These are very normal. But it is quite possible that your subconscious mind at that particular moment captures that and it writes on the wall of your mind that you are not capable. And you always are doubting yourself. You are not even aware how it happens, how it happened. It just happens. And I cannot give you a solution to this. 20 times you are told. 19 times it is not. No, 20 times you are told by your mother, "Tera bas ki nahi hai. You cannot accomplish this. Or you cannot even do this." Very normal, very casual. It doesn't affect you. But at some point, one point, it gets written there. So the interpreting self will become like that. And as a result of that, what kind of behavior you will have? You will have a behavior in which you are proving yourself again and again. It is in your subconscious mind. You are not even aware that you have a feeling of incapacity built in you. And how you are behaving, anything that comes to you, you start proving yourself to be a great person. And you become a narcissist. Another extreme that you have a very highly exalted sense of importance within your mind. And any small thing can insult you. And it comes from there. So that is how the interpreting self is actually formed. Large number of your experiences that have taken place. And how exactly this happens, this science or the neuroscience, neither the neuroscience nor the science of psychology nor the science of psychiatry has been able to find it. But it is there. I hope I have answered this question.
Yes, sir.
I'm expecting another question. Let me see if somebody asks the next question which should follow from this. I'm just waiting if somebody
Okay.
asks. Yes.
Sir, is it that the interpreting self and the experiencing self are contradictory always? And
No.
is it that the interpreting self takes precedence over the experiencing self, Madhurima?
Number one, Ms. Madhurima, interpreting self will always take precedence. It will dominate the experiencing self. This is there. This is one part. Number two, interpreting self will average out the experiencing self, the experiences. It will modify the experiences. That it always does. It is always like that. It modifies, it interprets, it changes, it builds a story around it. All right? That is how it is. It is like this. I hope I've answered the question, Dr. Madhurima. It is just repetition of actually what I had stated during the course of my lecture. Yes. Next question, Dr. Anna.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So another question by Mr. Amit is the self or information processing also a part of cognition?
Say again, question again.
Is the self or information processing part of cognition?
Interpreting self is actually a thought process. The interpreting self is a metaphor for thinking, how we think and react. All right. So yes, you are right when you say that it is a part of cognition. Cognition is what? If the cognition involves simply looking at data, experiencing, then it is experiencing self. But if the thinking involves interpreting that the cues which are coming from the environment, then it is the interpreting self. It is to be taken like this, because everything is happening inside the brain. Yes.
Yes, sir. Uh, there is a question from S. Day. Can interpreting self be controlled, and any connection between epilepsy, depression, and resilience?
Well, I'll take two questions. There are two questions in this. Connection between epilepsy, what is the second part? Epilepsy,
Depression and resilience.
depression, and resilience. No. Resilience and depression are two different things altogether. They are two different dimensions, please understand. Resilience is bouncing back. Depression is a state in which you are not able to bounce back. Okay, that is a situation. And when you say use the word depression very technically, then it is a biological state of the presence or say absence of certain chemicals in the mind. Okay, resilience is a state of mind. Depression, when you say clinically a person is depressed, then clinically certain amount of chemicals within the brain imbalance, the chemical imbalance in the brain has to be there. It is not merely a state of mind. Resilience, on the other hand, is a pure state of mind. So I think I've answered this part. And what was the first part of the question? Can this be controlled? Now,
Can the
understand.
interpreting self be controlled?
Yes, there are. This is the question. Just see, are others asking this question? Just see in the question box, Dr. Arnab.
Yes, sir. They are. They want to know about this. Yes, sir.
Can it be controlled?
Not controlled. Not controlled.
Yes.
They are talking more about building up resilience.
See, let me answer the question now. Building up, as far as building up resilience is concerned, I've told you, those aspects are there. But controlling the interest, rather than saying controlling, taking command of interpreting self. There are two ways of doing it. One is what the psychology says. Psychology says, makes a very simple statement on this, that says something which you are aware of. If you are aware of something, if you can watch something dispassionately, then you are command of that. If you know that your interpreting self is behaving in a certain manner, then you are in command of it. Then you can guide your interpreting self not to behave in that manner. That is one. Second, how to exalt the interpreting self. How to raise the level of the interpreting self, that it goes above the poor emotions of hatred, dislike, reactive behavior. Okay, these are the basic things. Greed, lust. How to do that? That interpreting self does not get attracted into the spiral of these negative emotions, these universally recognized negative emotions, like dislike for others, hatred for others, being unforgiving, being revengeful, being, for example, unloving, consumed by greed, self-interest, being completely selfish, not being ungiving. Interpreting self can be like that. How to do that? For that, there is a solution, but that solution is not in the mind. You have to go beyond mind. That solution is, it is not given by, it cannot be found. Mind cannot cure mind. You have to go beyond mind. And that comes when you get the state of thoughtlessness. You are in complete command of your mind when you reach that state of nirvichar, the thoughtlessness. So you have to find a method. I have found a method for this. I follow a system of meditation called Sahaja Yoga, which was started by Srimataji Nirmala Devi. very easily you get into the state of thoughtlessness, and the negative emotions automatically get wiped out. So that is one way. You can find any other method if you like. Otherwise, you can think of going to on website on the Google. Just go to sahajayoga.org. It is sahaja.org. I'm giving you a practical solution. Those of you who want to accept it, they can accept it. Got it?
Yes,
But
sir.
one thing is very clear. With the basis of my experience, I'm saying this. When you want to make a change in any object, be it mine, you cannot change wood with the help of wood. You have to change wood with the help of an instrument which is superior to the wood only. So similarly, mind cannot be cured by mind. Mind cannot be corrected by mind. In entire psychology, be it positive psychology or psychotherapy or anything, the entire focus is on awareness. That you cure it with the help of mind corrects mind. But the best way is that you go beyond mind. If you are able to go into the state of thoughtless, then it becomes easier.
Yes, sir. There is a question from Biplab Devnath. Can we link the interpreting self with existential philosophy?
No. Existential philosophy is entirely different. Interpreting self, very simple. You don't have to bring the existentialism into this. Actually, existentialism says this, that there is one inner core. You have to pursue that. Meaning of life everything comes from there. I'm completely denying that. What I'm saying is that there is an experiencing self and interpreting self. There are multiple selves within us. And when I add this dimension, that it is possible to go into the state of thoughtless, then you are adding yet another dimension to the intellect. From mind, now you are moving to the level of intellect. Well, of course, that is not the subject of today's discussion.
Yes, sir. And sir, another question from Seema Sambrani is that both the experiencing self and interpreting self are complementary, it seems. So can one live without either?
You exist because you have experiencing self. You exist because you have interpreting self. You cannot live without either of them. This will happen. You exist because of this. If this stops, then your mind stops. And if mind stops, then you can imagine what would happen.
Yes, sir. And as a last question, sir, since we have not been able to get what should be that follow-up question, so we request you, sir, to yourself tell us that question as well as the
No, the question
answer
was the
to
same. That question was the same. How to gain control over, or how to gain command over your interpreting self. Moreover, more than that, how to clear your subconscious mind of the negative aspects. When I made this statement that on your subconscious wall, things are written without your knowing. Your teacher in the classroom makes a statement of something, and that gets written on your wall of subconscious, and that starts governing your life until you are able to erase it. So how to do that? Your subconscious mind, how to clean it up, and how to fill it up with the positive things only. And positive things are only one: being hopeful, being forgiving, being giving. I have seen people who are not able to give anything. A lot of the stories are there. I don't have to tell you. Being compassionate, not keeping a grudge in the mind. How to do that? So for that, we have to go to the state of thoughtless. And one method which I have followed and I found useful, I've told you, Sahaja Yoga. Follow that, Sahajayoga. It is S of Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi. Follow that. Try that. Experience it for 1 week. Try that. There is no money involved in it. See, are you able to clean up many things in your mind? If you are able, then continue. Otherwise, leave it. What is there?
Yes, sir. And participants are thanking you for that. And sir, last point probably for today. There's a add up to your question, add up to the previous point of yours. Pragati Bhatnagar wants to know that does self introspection also helps in controlling interpreting self?
Yes, yes, it does. Introspection is very important because it is through introspection that sensitivity develops. For example, I'll give you one example here. You take tea while reading a newspaper. So when you are too involved in the newspaper and you are taking tea, the experience of tea does not take place at all. You forget about it. But if you are taking tea, keep the newspaper aside. You just take one sip of tea here, keep it in your mouth. You feel the aroma. You feel the sweet little steam which is coming out. You feel the smell. You feel the taste of different things, and then you take it in. You enjoy it. Now, similarly, in life also it happens. Very often, we hurt others and others hurt us. Okay? But we move on in life. When we start noticing these things, then sensitivity develops. From the self, the focus goes on to the other. All right? So it is definitely through introspection, we can have a better thing happening. Yes.
Yes, sir. And Nirmalya, sir, if you permit me for one more question.
Surely, surely, Arnav. Yeah.
Okay. So, sir, this is a question from Suresh Shah that what is the effect of relativity of pain and sensitivity?
Sorry, say again, please, please.
Effect of relativity of pain and sensitivity.
It is effect or affect? It is EFFECT
Effect
or effect of pain.
of relativity of pain and sensitivity.
The question is so incomplete. Actually, I will have to interpret the
Yes,
question. Can
yes,
you
sir.
ask him
Actually,
to
they have written. He has written the word define the effect of relativity of pain and sensitivity.
define the
Effect of
relative effect of
relativity of pain and
it is
sensitivity.
relativity or relation? You ask the
Relativity. Okay.
can that person
Relativity.
answer? Is it relation or relativity? Relation between pain and sensitivity or what?
So I suppose he wants to say that pain is, there are relative levels of pain.
But that is that will be that I want to avoid that interpretation actually.
So,
I
Mr.
want
Suresh Shah, if you are listening to us, your question is being raised. So, please clarify it. If you are, I think he's there, but if he can write up in, say, 1 or 2 minutes.
yes, if it is relationship between pain and sensitivity, yes, pain and sensitivity, they are definitely connected. If you can feel more pain of yourself and more pain of others also if you have higher degree of sensitivity. What is sensitivity? Sensitivity is being alive to the environment around, being alive to the cues that are coming to the five senses from outside. That is what sensitivity is. As I said, being sensitive to having tea, for example. So what is that? Every aspect you are concerned with. That is what sensitivity is. So if you are more alive, then the pain you feel for yourself and the pain you feel for others, that will be high. But it is quite possible that your interpreting self could be such that you are more sensitive to the pain you experience as compared with the pain that you feel which are being experienced by others. It is quite possible. That is, you may be more sensitive towards yourself. That's when you are concerned, you're very sensitive. Like, for example, you keep your clothes very carefully. But when it comes to keeping the clothes of other family members, you just throw them. It is quite possible. And it can find much bigger manifestations at workplace. For example, you are very concerned that everybody respects you, but when it is your turn to respect others, you don't, or you are less respectful than you expect others to be respectful towards you. So this is like this. I hope I have understood the question correctly.
Yes, sir. I also think, and Suresh ji has not been able to respond back, so I think we can hand over to Nirmalya sir for now.
Well, thanks, Arnav. Thanks. That's very well done. You've picked up all the questions, and thank you, Dr. Sharma, for answering the questions. I would only say that this has been a very interesting and possibly a very important kind of a lecture, because I do understand that teachers, when they are in a classroom, they have immense impact on the students. Right throughout their careers, there would be hundreds and thousands of students who go through them as their students. And it is very important that the teacher is self-aware of himself or herself, which makes him a sensitive human being who can also understand other people. So I think that self-awareness and that ability to be self-resilient and to look at issues and questions and to move forward uh, will be a very inspiring, motivating thing for all students who come in contact with that teacher. So in that sense, Dr. Sharma, your lecture was invaluable, and I think we all carry back with us an important message and methodology also as to how we can, in many ways, become a better teacher, a better human being who can serve the society in a better way. Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for your lecture. You've always been very kind. You have always come to us, to our college, whenever we have called you. And as usual, you have had a very fascinating 1.5 hours with our participants. Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Samantha. Thank you very much, Ramanujan team, for giving me this opportunity of talking to people. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm equally honored. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye-bye. Can I leave the meeting, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dr. Sharma, you can, yeah.